Hello, I'm Deborah Every, and I'm going to read an excerpt from my novel, Deena Undone. It is the story of a woman battling an ancient entity called the sensu, whose stock and trade is attacking a person's senses one by one. In this excerpt, we meet Dina Bartlett, who carries tremendous guilt after not being there for her mother during her long illness and death. She gets a second chance caring for her dying, abusive Aunt Agatha, but strange things are happening. She's having terrifying visions that seem more real than dreams or even nightmares. And Dina suspects that her Aunt Agatha is responsible. So here we go. Dina walked along the edge of a lush forest, carrying a baby swathed in a blanket, frayed and threadbare. The air was filled with the fresh scent of citrus. Before long, she came to a moss-covered path flanked by ferns quivering in the light breeze. She stepped onto the path and headed toward an ink-black lake in the distance. When she reached the shore, she noticed 5 floating objects swirling lazily in the water, but couldn't make out what they were. She leaned over for a closer look, and as she did, a small hand from her bundle reached out. Dina looked down at the baby, but the hand was gone. The baby was gone. In its place was a rotting, maggot-infested piece of meat. The stench rose up into her face, watering her eyes and making her gag. Dina threw it into the water, where the rotting meat transformed into a likeness of her mother. "Dina!" her mother screamed. "Help me!" And then the water, no longer water now, the thick, black, viscous liquid oozed into her mother's mouth and nose, with her mother's screams struggling to escape the mire. Dina tried to reach her, but was stopped by some kind of barrier, a tether, something. All she could do was watch helplessly as the oily bog took her mother, her unblinking eyes slowly sinking below the surface and out of sight, with a final horrific groan. Dina heard someone laughing behind her and, wheeling around, came face to face with her aunt holding a cigarette. Agatha dropped her jaw, and a cascade of maggots flowed from her mouth, while a voice in Dina's head whispered, "Ready or not, here I come." Dina fought her way to the surface, but the twisted images of Agatha, of her mother, of the Black Lake threatened to follow her into the room. "Turn on the light," she yelled. Surely the light would save her. Surely it would keep the images at bay. Simon reached for the lamp and flipped the switch. The sudden glare helped, but only just. He pulled her in close and whispered, "Shh, I've got you." It was 3 a.m. She leaned against him, hoping the feel of his body would wrangle her heartbeat from a sprint to a quiet shuffle, but it wasn't doing the job. Dina brushed away the last threads of her nightmare, or was it more? She then recited the visions to Simon in a river of words, a kind of exorcism, all while keeping her voice in furtive whisper for fear she might rouse the demons crouching in shadows, waiting. And when she was finished, she rested her head on his chest and listened to his heart until her own breathing finally slowed. "This can't go on," said Simon. "You're exhausted." "She's dying," snapped Dina. "What do you expect me to do?" He started to answer, but then stopped as they lay together, too wired to sleep. Before long, the sounds of birds drifted through the window, and by 6:30, Simon was nuzzling his cheek against Dina's forehead. "I want you to promise me something," he said gently. "If you start feeling, I don't know, like you can't cope, promise you'll tell me." Dina pushed him away. "For God's sake, stop. This isn't a make or break audition. I'm caring for the last member of my family. I'll be fine." Simon brushed a lock of hair from her eyes. "High-stress auditions aren't the only things that can trigger a panic attack. And darling, panic attacks aren't the only thing that can derail a person. Your aunt has spent years chipping away at your self-worth. She does not get a free pass because of a few crumbs of attention flung at your feet when you were a teenager." "Crumbs? I got my first off-Broadway show because of her." "Okay, Fine, but that doesn't give her the right to treat you like a doormat. What I don't understand is why you never push back. If anybody looks at you crosswise, your reflex is to snap them in half. With all her harsh words and abuse, you sit in that rehab center for hours on end. Don't let her last days on earth push you over the edge. Well, said Deena, you needn't worry your pretty little head. Once my aunt is dead, your Agatha troubles will be over. That's it. And thank you very much.